Have you ever apologized? Even when you weren't the one who did something wrong? Maybe someone ignored your message, raised their voice, made you feel small. And somehow, you were the one saying, "I'm sorry." At first, it seems like kindness, like maturity, like taking responsibility. But what if it isn't? What if that constant feeling of guilt was never yours to begin with? Most people believe guilt appears after doing something bad. But psychology tells a different story. Some people feel guilty simply for existing. They apologize for asking questions, for taking up space, for needing help, for saying no, even when they've done absolutely nothing wrong. And the strangest part? They often become the people everyone describes as so nice. The reliable friend, the quiet coworker, the child who never caused problems, the partner who always compromises. Everyone loves having someone like this around. But almost nobody asks why they're like this. Because people don't suddenly wake up one morning believing everything is their fault. That belief has to be learned. Imagine a young child. Children don't understand complex emotions yet. They don't know what manipulation is. They don't know emotional neglect. They don't know gaslighting. They only know one thing. If something feels wrong, it must somehow be because of me. Now imagine that child growing up in a home where love feels unpredictable. Sometimes their parents are warm, sometimes they're distant. Sometimes they're angry for reasons the child can't understand. One day, they receive affection. The next day, the exact same behavior leads to criticism. The child's brain desperately searches for a pattern, because uncertainty feels terrifying. And eventually, it finds one. If I become better, maybe everything will be okay. So they become quieter, kinder, more helpful, less demanding. They stop expressing anger. They stop expressing disappointment. They stop expressing themselves. Not because they're naturally calm, but because somewhere deep inside, they've learned something dangerous. If people are upset, I must be the reason. This survival strategy works surprisingly well, at least in childhood. Keeping the peace can reduce conflict. Pleasing adults can create moments of safety. Taking responsibility can make the world feel predictable. The brain rewards anything that increases survival, even if it's unhealthy. But childhood eventually ends. The strategy doesn't. The child simply grows taller. Now they're sitting in meetings, afraid to share an opinion. They're staying in relationships that constantly hurt them. They're saying yes, when every part of them wants to say no. Not because they're weak, because their brain still believes disagreement is dangerous. Here's what's fascinating. Research in psychology shows that our brains care far more about emotional survival than logical accuracy. If believing everything is my fault once protected you, your brain may continue protecting that belief, even decades later. Logic says, you didn't cause this. Your nervous system says, stay quiet, or you'll lose love. And when those two voices disagree, the nervous system almost always wins. That's why people who constantly feel guilty often can't explain why. Ask them, why are you apologizing? And they'll pause, because they genuinely don't know. The apology happened automatically, long before conscious thought ever had a chance to intervene. But here's where things become even more complicated, because people don't reward this behavior equally. Some appreciate it, others exploit it. Think about the people who always ask for favors from the same person, the ones who expect instant replies, the ones who disappear until they need something. This isn't always intentional. Human beings naturally repeat what works. If someone never sets boundaries, others slowly stop noticing they even exist. Their kindness becomes an expectation, not a gift. At first, it's little things: working overtime, canceling plans, lending money, listening for hours, saying, "It's okay," even when it isn't. Over time, those sacrifices become invisible. The more they give, the less people thank them. Eventually, something strange happens. The person who's always available starts feeling lonely, not because they're surrounded by bad people, because almost nobody truly knows them. Everyone knows the version of them that says yes. Very few know the version that's exhausted, or angry, or overwhelmed, because they've hidden that version for years. Ironically, the people who fear disappointing others the most often end up disappointing themselves every single day. Psychologists sometimes describe this as losing contact with your authentic self, not because it disappears, but because it hasn't been allowed to speak for so long. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack. Every time someone hands you another stone, you smile and place it inside. At first, it's manageable. Then it becomes uncomfortable. Eventually, walking itself becomes exhausting. But because you've carried it for so long, you forget what it feels like without the weight. Emotional guilt works the same way. You stop asking, "Should I be carrying this?" Instead, you ask, "Why am I so tired?" The answer isn't always stress. Sometimes, it's years of emotional responsibility that never belonged to you. Here's something most people never realize. Feeling guilty doesn't automatically mean you've done something wrong. Guilt is an emotion, not evidence. Just like fear doesn't always mean you're in danger, and anxiety doesn't always mean something bad is about to happen. Your emotions evolved to protect you, but protection isn't the same as accuracy. Someone who grew up expecting rejection can feel rejected by neutral silence. Someone who grew up expecting blame can feel guilty over another person's bad mood. The brain fills in missing information, using old experiences, not current reality. That's why two people can experience the exact same situation and interpret it completely differently. One person hears, "We need to talk," and thinks, "Okay." The other immediately thinks, "I've done something wrong." Nothing actually happened, but the emotional prediction already did. This is one of the brain's most powerful shortcuts. It tries to predict pain before pain arrives. The problem is that old predictions often survive long after the danger is gone. And without realizing it, you begin living your entire adult life according to rules that were written by a frightened child. So, if guilt isn't always telling the truth, how do you know when it's real? Here's a simple question, one that therapists often encourage people to ask themselves. If someone I loved were in my exact situation, would I blame them? Most people answer, no. And that's the moment everything starts to shift, because they suddenly realize they've been judging themselves by rules they'd never apply to anyone else. Real responsibility is healthy. It allows us to learn, to repair mistakes, to grow. But chronic guilt is different. It convinces you that your worth depends on keeping everyone else comfortable. No human being can do that. People will misunderstand you, disagree with you, become disappointed, leave. Not because you failed, but because that's part of life. The goal was never to make everyone happy. It was never possible. The healthiest people aren't the ones who never upset anyone. They're the ones who understand that disappointing others is sometimes the price of being honest with yourself. This doesn't mean becoming cold or selfish or ignoring other people's feelings. It means recognizing where your responsibility ends and someone else's begins. Think about boundaries. Many people imagine boundaries as walls, something that pushes people away. But healthy boundaries are closer to doors. You decide when to open them, when to close them, and who gets a key. Without them, everyone walks in whenever they want, including people who never plan to respect your peace. The first time you stop apologizing unnecessarily, it will probably feel uncomfortable. The first time you say, "No, I can't," your heart may race, your stomach may tighten, your mind may whisper. They'll be angry. Maybe they will. But discomfort isn't proof you're doing something wrong. Sometimes, it's proof you're breaking a pattern that controlled you for years. The people who truly care about you may be surprised at first, but healthy relationships adapt. Only relationships built on unlimited access begin to fall apart. And if someone only values you when you ignore your own needs, that wasn't acceptance. It was dependence. Here's the truth many people spend decades trying to discover. You were never responsible for managing everyone else's emotions. You were never responsible for earning the right to exist. You didn't have to become perfect to deserve love. The child inside you believed guilt could keep everyone safe. That belief helped you survive. But you aren't that child anymore. You have choices now. You can pause before apologizing. You can question the voice that immediately blames you. You can ask, "Is this actually my responsibility?" And sometimes, for the first time in your life, the answer will be no. Not because you've become less caring, but because you've finally learned the difference between kindness and carrying a weight that was never yours to begin with.